We always have to work backwards. So why don't we talk about the backwards piece? What are the contributing factors to the gut inflammation we're seeing? What are the contributing factors to the secretory IgA being low? Why does this happen?
So first thing first is we have to do an adequate history. How did we get here? That's like the first question that everyone needs to be asking themselves, and their functional medicine doctor needs to be kind of reviewing with them. So a lot of people, there's usually a history portion that reveals this. So when I come in and I do a history, I do a timeline history, I try to figure out how the person got here. So there's two scenarios. There's either the person got to this position where they're sick and not feeling well acutely, i.e. I was in Mexico, I ate some bad food, now I'm sick. Or most of the time there's a chronic insidious bit to it, where there's been some stress, emotional stress, physical stress, chemical stress, bad foods, poor digestion. And then the kind of stress has been going in a downward pattern. Health symptoms have been getting worse over time. And then boom, they get sick acutely, but it's not really acutely. There's been a downhill kind of spiral the whole time. So number one, there's totally acute, feeling great. Now they're not. Number two, it's this chronic downward decline. Boom, they get sick. And I'd say number three is it's just chronic and there's no timeline. There's no event at all. It's just a gentle downward slope. So three ways that kind of health symptoms unfold. One, very acute. Two, a downward decline followed by an acute episode. And it could be a couple of acute episodes, by the way, may not be one. And a lot of times there could be an autoimmune flare involved in there. And number three is it's just a gentle downward decline with no acute episode. So those are the big three scenarios. So we have to really look at, hey, when was the last time you remember yourself feeling good? Walk me through the timeline over the last 10, 15 years. When did things start to go sideways? Was it when you were eating some bad food, some gluten? Was it when your diet was poor? Was it when stress or sleep was poor? Was it when you started going through menopause or having some hormonal issues? Was it when you had a thyroid flare? What was going on when all this stuff happened? And those are the important questions, because we have to connect the dots to the root cause. So when we ask questions about symptoms that are downstream, we're actually looking upstream to the root cause that cause these symptoms to manifest. So there's a different mindset. Most clinicians and doctors are looking at, hey, what medication can we do to cover up that symptom? Or even what supplement or nutrient or herb can we use to cover up that symptom? But we may be looking at that too, but we're also looking upstream as well.
Yeah. A couple other triggering factors. Divorce is huge. So any issues with marriage, whether someone just had a bad marriage and needs to divorce, but they haven't yet, they did get a divorce. Like I had a woman last week who developed Hashimoto. She developed thyroid antibodies after her divorce. She had blood work done before. She had no antibodies. She went through crazy stressful divorce, fighting over who gets the kids and all that. And then boom, you look at the labs and then there's the antibodies that showed up as sort of a response to the major stress.
Yeah, of course. And ideally, when you deal with marital stress, ideally you're on top of it and you're seeing a counselor to help, because it's always easier to mend it than to walk away. Some situations you can, some you can't, but we always recommend getting some kind of counselor in there to help on that side of the fence. And then, of course, death of a loved one is going to be a big one. Even things like moving. And a lot of times moving may be tied to a promotion or a good thing, but believe me, it's very stressful. If we look at what's called the social adjustment questionnaire, moving, death of a loved one, death of a child is even more. Affairs, divorce, anything on the relationship side is really big. So those are going to be important things you want to look at from an emotional stress standpoint, because those can be a big thing. And they put stress on the adrenal glands. So, hey, we just want to make sure that we're addressing it, we're processing it, we're seeing a counselor, we're seeing a therapist, someone to work on it. Maybe there's subconscious stress. Maybe we're working on EFT or NLP or EMDR techniques to deal with the PTSD from that trauma. So we have things like that, right? And then, of course, like in your timeline history, we're also going to be looking at, was there a leak in your house? Was there any mold exposure? Things like that, because that's a big environmental pull. Hey, do you feel better when you leave your house for a week? Barring the fact that you may be on vacation and stress is lower. If you just leave your house for a week, do you feel better? So we like to have those kind of timelines, because so I digress, but that can set you up for a whole bunch of gut issues. So when we talk about gut testing, it's never just the gut myopically. We're trying to connect the gut to underlying stressors that have been accumulating for years, if not decades, that got you to this position to begin with.